Continuing, You Can Change the World, The Christopher Approach by James Keller. We are probably going to conclude Chapter 5, Government. Your job to make it good. In short, failure to use your ballot smooths the way for the corrupt politicians, for the selfish lawmakers, for the subversives to dominate the machinery of government, while they are still in the minority, a condition which is quite contrary to the entire spirit of democracy, where the majority decides public policy, while still recognizing minority rights. Well, the latter isn't necessarily a feature of democracy, but while I believe in a different system of government than the American system, I believe in constitutional democracy, not a constitutional republic. I mean, you can follow the laws while you're in a constitutional republic. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you have to do what's bad for your country or anything like that. No, I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying, the Christopher, therefore, must be a voter. 2, he can get his family, friends, and neighbors to vote. He can become a canvasser on election day to help turn out the vote for the principles in which he believes. He can carry his citizenship with a sense of genuine responsibility, can become a living part of his community. The loyalty group. The loyalty group is a regular part of our society, as intrinsic to the making of public policy as are the various local assemblies, are even the Congress of the United States. Such groups are merely combinations of persons banded together to affect popular thought by joint action. Some groups are good, some are bad, depending on your point of view and the moral worth of the issues involved. They exist for 2 reasons. First, when we elect a candidate to an office, we do so because of a general attitude concerning him, such as his party affiliation, or his honesty, or perhaps even his looks. And once he is elected, we seek openly to get him to favor some special piece of legislation which affects us deeply. Secondly, we may wish to educate or arouse the community on some issue so that there will be a constant pressure on all sections of society to swing into action. Doing this takes many forms: letter writing and telegrams, meetings and parades, lobbyists and delegations, newspaper publicity, and general advertising. Almost everybody is a member of some such group. It may be a trade union, or a taxpayers' league, or any of a whole host of easily recognizable gatherings. Here again, a special duty falls upon the shoulders of the Christopher, the duty of acting in any such group with purpose and with intelligence. A Christopher should ask himself or herself 3 questions when aligning with a cause. First, what is its purpose? Second, how does it intend to realize its purpose? Third, who controls the group? Purpose should be examined closely. Too many people fall for a phrase. Sometimes the phrase is good, like we want peace, but often as not the supposed road to peace, maybe a road to war. A cliché is not a solution. The more dishonest a group is, the more cynically it will hunt for high-sounding phrases to catch the unwary. How a group intends to realize its purpose is as vital a consideration as its aims. A foul means for an allegedly good end generally winds up as a foul end. Who controls an organization is a matter which should be thoroughly investigated. Gullible citizens are too often tricked into joining a group, paying dues, lending a name to a letterhead, only to find out much later that the organization they support has become a loathsome thing in the hands of unscrupulous people who have perverted its original purpose. The Attorney General of the United States recently published a long list of organizations whose intent is subversive. An examination of their names or of their alleged programs would never ordinarily reveal the dangerous nature of these groups, their real character, can only be determined by the character of the men in control. Look particularly to see who is secretary of the organization to which you belong, or which you intend to join. Check also on the editor of the group's official journal, if it has one, and investigate also those on the nominating committee who make the policy of the organization. When these questions have been asked and answered satisfactorily, the duty of the Christopher, when he or she joins an organization, is to participate personally in its activities, go on meetings, be alert, know what goes on, accept posts of responsibility, vote in the elections. It is up to you individually to see that these pressure groups are utilized to strengthen your democracy, not to weaken it, that they are used to enrich your lives, not to impoverish them, that they are used to liberate each individual, not enslave him. Remember, to be a positive influence for good, you must be on the spot, meeting your fellow citizens, making your living presence felt. These lead the way you can follow. The best way to show what can be accomplished in the field is to demonstrate by actual cases what is being done right now by some of those who have made the public service their life's work. The old saying of the skeptics, "I'm from Missouri, show me," can most effectively be answered by living examples. Consider, then, the following typical of hundreds of cases like me. Consider, then, the following typical of hundreds of cases like them. One man, motivated by the desire to serve his country, as others were trying to destroy it, ran for Congress and was elected not long ago. One of his recent talks, according to those who heard it, figuratively pulled them out of their seats with the soundness and enthusiasm of his presentation of vital American doctrines. A Seattle girl, a graduate of the University of Washington, came to New York after the close of World War II, uncertain as to what to make of her future. She finally decided to go down to Washington and try to get into some branch of government service, this on the advice of a Christopher friend of hers, the only person, in her own words, who ever showed the concern for me as an individual, and with the fire of God's love, which burned brighter than the zeal of the Reds, who almost won me over. When she realized how the subversives had taken me for an ideological sleigh ride, her whole outlook changed. Her government job at the moment isn't too important, but the prospects are excellent for transfer to a more responsible position where she can do even greater good. Not long ago, 2,500 delegates of the General Federation of Women's Clubs, meeting in the East to consider the entrance of thousands of displaced persons, were persuaded to change their previous stand against the bill before Congress and went on record in favor of it. This turnabout was due to the never-say-die spirit of a handful of women whose courageous persistence continued through defeat. They never ceased working for a reconsideration of the measure. One delegate from Florida made a strong point by quoting to the assembly the words of their spiritual master. "For I was hungry, and you gave me to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me to drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in." Matthew 25:35. Now, if you look at the basic of the whole term, spiritual master is another way to render it other than our Lord, or, since the delegates represented some 3 million women, the pressure their influence could exert on Congress as well can well be imagined. It was a wonderfully inspiring example of democracy in action and public effort for the common good. A young man from Michigan, very much interested in the labor relations phase of government, gave up a position in a manufacturing plant to go into federal service, where his zeal for good could be more widely felt. A girl in Boston went to Washington, secured a position on a senator's staff, and now is personally responsible for many important documents of factual data on one of the Senate committees. 4 young people, 3 men, and 1 woman gave up business careers to join the staff of the United Nations organizations. 2 are interpreters, 1 a secretary, another a clerk, another Christopher, a man in his late 30s, resigned as plant foreman to run for office in his local community. Though without previous political experience, the soundness of his platform and the honesty of his approach helped defeat a small, well-entrenched political machine. When I started out, people told me I was crazy, that it couldn't be done. He said I was polite, and listened to him. Then I went ahead and did it. A college graduate, after serving in the Merchant Marine during the war, has enrolled for an intensive training course with the view to entering the U.S. Foreign Service. A woman, a foreign department store executive, has gone into personnel work in the government offices of her state, where she is instrumental in seeing that only loyal Americans are put on the public payroll. A lawyer in California offered his services and was accepted by the State Senate Committee on Education for the purpose of analyzing the Building America supplementary textbooks. Volumes referred to elsewhere in this book as being considered detrimental to the best interest of this country and favorable to the slave way of life in Russia. Detrimental to the best interest of this country. Well, what about the slave way of the corporations, right? That's got to be considered perhaps different than what's in the best interest of this country. The opportunities are boundless. All these cases, and numerous others paralleling them, are tremendous steps in the right direction, yet they are but a comparative drop in the bucket when the vastness of the field is realized. According to recent reports, including that of the Civil Service Assembly, some 5,900,000 employees are on the public payroll. The federal government accounts for 2,050,000, while the state and local governments list some 3,859,000 workers. The opportunities to get into this vital phase of our national life are almost limitless. It is up to you to see that these opportunities are not wasted. When instances like those cited are multiplied thousands of times over, then much of the foreboding about how our government and nation may be misled will be dispelled. Some practical suggestions. To assist in this, here are a few tips which it might be well to follow. Know and make your voice heard by your local officials, councilmen, aldermen, etc. Know your congressmen and make your influence felt by them too. Follow the newspaper reports of how your congressmen vote on various pieces of legislation. Keep abreast of the issues before your local, state, and national governments. Register and vote in primary, state, and national elections. Join civic groups after proper investigations as to their purpose, methods, and personnel, and be active in such groups. Encourage others who can to go personally into all phases of government. Work with the motive of preserving God-given rights, which the subversives are trying to uproot from our free way of life. Go yourselves as Christophers, if it is humanely possible, and in the spirit of be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only. James 1:22. Democracy's battle for existence is never finished. In every classroom, in every government office, in every legislative and judicial chamber, the words of the Declaration of Independence should be publicly displayed and lived up to, and in every heart their meaning should guide every thought, word, and action. With our founding fathers, you can defend these God-given rights, and with them, you can echo the words. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, the governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles, organizing its power in such form as to them that shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. And the pursuit of happiness can happen in, pretty much any attempt of a positive or negative nature. So, I'm not sure we can say it's people's right to be happy doing or not doing what they want. As Raymond B. Fosdick, who retired recently after 12 years as president of the Rockefeller Foundation, pointed out in an article in the New York Times, not dollars alone, faith is also needed. America has a song to sing that is not based on an economic creed or dogma, that has nothing to do with a catchword like free enterprise. We were born in revolution, and we are not ashamed of it. It sprang from a passionate belief in freedom and in the worth and dignity of creative capacity of the human personality. This is the tradition of America, and we must not let the song die on our lips. The foundations of this country were based on moral principles that emphasizing the rights of men everywhere to all that makes life satisfying and rewarding. To allow the Soviet Union, with its totalitarian philosophy, to appropriate for its own uses this promise of a better future is to betray the vision and greatness out of which we sprang. Our faith once captured the imagination of the world. It can finally capture it again. Finally, to repeat the words the men who founded this republic used in closing the Declaration of Independence. See, republic, not democracy, republic. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. And that's something else we should look at too. Divine providence, right? Well, just because God has not forced things to be different than we wanted doesn't mean it's sanctioned. These men dared everything to win the God-given heritage which is yours today. You, as a Christopher, relying on the same divine guidance, can do no less than to work unceasingly to preserve this heritage for yourself and for posterity.